right, and here we are for our first week of our Mixtape Mondays live stream. I am your host for the night, John, the creative blue collar guy, and tonight I am joined by Roman of the Empire, Stephen Ransom, and it looks like Jacob Ironside just jumped in here.
Right on.
Welcome,
Nice.
everybody. Well, we'll start off with you, Roman. How are you doing tonight? What's going on? What's new?
I'm good. It's always exciting here in the Empire Studios. Right now, the fan is right on my nether regions, and that's making it tolerable out here. So that's how I'm doing.
All right, that's good to know. And Steven, good to have you back again. I know you were on with Roman and I on his channel last Thursday. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Very good, sir. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, and then I think this will be my first time chatting with Jacob Ironside. I've kind of come across you on the social medias a little bit, but welcome and thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, no problem. Good to be here.
All right, so let me see if I can get this going. I'm going to try to get a little bit of music in the background. If it's either too loud or what, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But otherwise, yeah. So I think we got our first week of Mixtape Mondays on our topic at hand tonight was going to be 10 of the, I don't know if I would say greatest. Let's see, what does it say? 10 scariest horror movie characters, according to Ranker. So I guess before we even get into the list or start pulling these up, do you guys have anything offhand? If you got a chance to either look at the article or have something you wanted to add in on your own, if something immediately comes to mind when you think like 10 scariest horror movie characters, like what's kind of, we'll start with you, Roman. Like what's one of the first ones that would come to your mind?
So for me, being the age that I am, which is ancient, the 1979 Salem's Lot, Kurt Barlow, who was the vampire. It's a Stephen King story, which a lot of you are familiar with. Kurt Barlow, the vampire, was very much based on the Nosferatu mold of the 1920s. And when I was 9, that thing creeped me the hell out. He didn't speak. He just had these fangs, and he was off color, bald, pointy ears. He was creepy as all hell. And I was surprised he wasn't on the big list. But I'm actually surprised at some of the ones that are on the big list. So
so then what about you, Steven? What's if someone were to say, okay, like scariest horror movie character, what's like right at the top of your mind? What's something you think of?
Well, I've never really been much into horror.
Okay.
But when I was in 5th grade, circa 1980, I saw the movie Alien. And I was young enough, and the movie was scary enough, and that was pretty much it. It settled in that... Because Jaws is actually scarier to me than most of these movie monsters because they're movie monsters, right?
Yes.
But Alien had that same vibe of out of the shadows. You have no idea what this thing is. It doesn't even have eyes. It's just, it creeped me out. It was like I ran out of the theater, went into the bathroom. I was 10 years old, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we had kind of touched on that a little bit last week when what we were talking about the movie film scores, and Jaws also came up, and it is movies like that, like Alien and Jaws and stuff, where it's those movies. It was more of what you didn't see that scared you. Like the big scary thing about both Alien and Jaws is like you never really got a good look at whatever the monster was until like the third reel, and then at that point it's like holy shit, that's what's been stalking them this whole time. Like
right.
Yeah. All right. And then Jacob Ironside, what do you got? Do you have something that immediately pops into your brain if someone says scary horror movie characters?
Oh, you talking to me? You broke out there for a second.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So, yeah, Jacob, what do you have like something that immediately comes to mind for like scary horror movie characters?
Well, I'm the same way with horror movies as Steven. I'm not really a horror film movie or horror movie lover, but Yeah, I agree with him. The Alien, that
Mm-hmm.
that movie freaked me out. I mean, you don't really see it at all. They just show little glimpses of it, and it's just enough to draw you in and scare you. I just like the. I don't have to see blood and gore, but that's enough for me.
Right. And again, I think that was
I
kind
still
of some of the
like
cool
shuffling
things.
through my. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Roman.
I was shuffling through my garage pitch dark because of that. In much the same way I like going in a body of water because of Jaws.
But no, and even then, it's like both like Alien and Jaws. There's always sort of that kind of discussion of like, are those really considered horror movies? Because they're sort of suspense dramas. Alien is very much a sci-fi movie, but it is. It obviously. I mean, we have two people in the chat here that saw it at a young age that it scared the bejeebus out of you. I didn't actually see the Alien movies until I was probably an adult. But yeah, I mean, they're creepy as shit. But I saw Jaws when I was probably way too young to see Jaws. And that's probably why I hate the ocean now, even though I live in a coastal city.
Yeah, I think
I
there's
was
a
out. Go ahead.
I think there's a line that can be drawn between a horror movie character. Jaws is a natural creature,
Mm-hmm.
right? I wouldn't consider one of those old cowboy movies where the guy's hunting a bear to be considered a horror movie or a monster movie. But it must have felt like it for them that this bear is a monster. But it's not in the vein of Hollywood, movie monster, where they're usually supernatural, certainly otherworldly. We're dealing with the undead. We're dealing with supernatural creatures, creatures from another planet. You could say that the Predator is a horror movie character, even though it's more of an action movie character.
Yeah.
So there's definitely lines in the sand. I think, just looking at the list you guys sent me, I think Hannibal Lecter is probably the closest thing to a real person.
Yeah.
On that list.
Well, because that's one that it's like that could and probably has really happened. So I guess before we really dive into this, so just real quick, want to pull up. We've got Miss Rosie Gamgee in the chat here. Hello, Rosie, and she said 10 scariest monsters is Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit count. Yeah, I would say that like he was definitely a villain, and you got kind of crazy looking towards the end of the movie there when they realized he was a toon. And then what was she had another one here? Oh, the cat thing from American Tail, demon thing from All Dogs Go to Heaven. I'm not as familiar with All Dogs Go to Heaven, but American Tail, I did watch that a bunch when I was a kid. So okay. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, Rosie. Always good having you in the chat here.
Yeah, hello, Rosie.
Yeah, so
actually,
let's go ahead.
Predator and Alien are they both have the horror, sci-fi, action vibe. You're getting kind of the trifecta there. I think they work really well, except for Alien is different. Alien or hot. Other ones have the horror, action, sci-fi, and then Hector. I mean, the vibe. I'll hold off on into placement in there because I can about him for a very long time.
Yeah, so again, kind of like I just found this list that I thought was kind of interesting, and you might have some agreements or disagreements. But the very first one, I guess it actually kind of went backwards. It starts with number 10 and counts down to number 1. But the first one, I thought it was kind of weird because later there's the other half of this movie. What's that?
One thing I would say is that Alien and the thing that's the scariest about that is you're part of their reproduction.
Right.
They use you to reproduce.
Yes, Alien, you're right. Ew. And for on the Ictor is substantial. The the paranoia element of not knowing who and who's.
Right. So on our list, the first one, I guess number 10, which I guess they decided was the least scary.
I don't know.
Was
I think they the order for me.
But this one is I guess it was a demon that they called Pazuzu. This was essentially the demon that possessed the little girl in the movie The Exorcist. I actually got to admit, on this one, there was a time in my life where I would watch all of like The Exorcist, Exorcism of Emily Rose, Paranormal Activity, all this stuff. Nothing fazed me. And then one day, just like something snapped in my brain where this paranormal stuff started to really get under my skin. And I can't do it anymore. Cause again, it's what you don't see. It's something that you don't see. It can take control of your body. It can like this stuff started to really creep me out. But number 10, this was essentially like the demon that possesses the little girl in The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, was kind of.
Well, you're kind of breaking up there, but
we're all breaking up. Is that thing pop random in the? It was. I think that was obvious. Intent of those moments was to give the audience jolt scare. Sometimes it's a creepy thing.
Yeah, The Exorcist was a strange one, and I'm curious to know, Blue Collar, what year you were in. How old were you when this all shifted? Where it went from being like, yeah, these are kind of cool. They're definitely like, very adult, but and then all of a sudden it just became something. Because there's a lot of body horror in this idea of being possessed. Jacob was talking about this too with The Thing, is that this thing possesses your body or clones your body, and it changes everything when it goes to that state. Alien was similar too. I mean, this thing gets on your face and you become its uterus,
Yeah, I think I was probably in my like maybe mid-20s, and I couldn't really tell you what the shift was. Because talking about like body horror movies, like Michael Cronenberg, like the his remake of The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, stuff like that, like the visually gross stuff doesn't bother me. Like when I can visually see like, oh, those are practical effects or that's CGI, like it's grotesque, but I'm kind of like, whatever. Like I'm not bothered by it. But it's that idea of like something that you can't see and you can't explain, but can like take over. I remember there's another movie that came out, I think in the mid 2000s, called The Exorcism of Emily Rose. That one was much less Hollywood and much more real. If you have any sort of like faith or belief in God or a higher power or anything, that one was very like, oh shit, like this looks kind of real, like this looks kind of believable. And that one was much more closely following a true story. And there's debate on maybe she was epileptic, maybe she was possessed, whatever, but the movie was so well done. I was like, holy shit, that's fucking creepy.
I've seen that as well, and I agree. Actually, I have it's type of movie. And one of the things that didn't make the list was The Conjuring. And The Conjuring for me, even as an adult, is a creep ass. That's one of those you're shutting the lights off on the bed movies. You're going like, cool, and the thing just creeped me out. It was they did a nice job scare of that movie.
Jacob, got some change to throw in?
As a Christian, I didn't go into the more demonic movies. I just steered clear of that kind of stuff. So I didn't really have any interest to see those.
And I think that's a little bit of what happened with me too, is that like, still like being raised in the church and still having my faith and belief in God, I still kind of thought like, oh, I can watch these because they're just movies and they're whatever. But I think just over time, I started to get that feeling of like, no, like maybe the movie is kind of Hollywood and kind of done up. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I believe this stuff can really happen and does really happen. So like, so I guess the next one. The Thing. We've already been talking about this a little bit, but here we go. I know that Roman is sort of like our resident Thing expert. I'm not sure about Jacob and Steven, but I know that Roman and I have had a lot of conversations about this movie.
No, and actually, either Steven or Jacob, go ahead and on this if you want to, because I can go on about this one for a minute if I start.
Yeah, me too. Have you seen this one, Jacob?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah, I've seen it. But I can't think about this movie without thinking of Big Trouble in Little China.
Right.
They both have
well,
a little corny.
Thank goodness it wasn't Jack Burton up there.
Yeah.
It's funny how his casting crosses over like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, it's such a retrospective to even discuss this movie because I've seen it so many dozens of times. At this point, I'm watching the next generation put it in between their ears and just marveling at how effective it still is. I mean, people get deeply creeped out looking at this stuff because there were so many effective moments in the film.
Oh my gosh!
When the chest breaks open and bites the doctor's hands off. It's just when the guy's head opens up when they're all tied to the bench and like leaps up towards the ceiling. So many effective shots where it's just like, Jesus, there is an alien on screen right now. I am witnessing a real alien on screen. It's terrifying. It's terrifying stuff. It's so well done. And there's just no way to, look at this shot. It's like, yeah, you can kind of tell that it's rubber, but this thing is actually made up of alien cells trying to reproduce the shape. So maybe that's what a real alien transmorphic looks like. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's it's so effective.
And as a freeze frame, of course, it's losing its the quick camera effect where it's only on for 2 seconds. It's going to look a lot more real. But when the scene is actually happening, when Norris is coming apart on the table and his head separates and oozes off the side of the table with the green goo and the popping and the Walt Disney, he's different, scary, not the same. It was just, and then the spearhead thing, and there was just good parts of this. And the dogs in the beginning is one of the scariest parts of the movie. I thought they're all howling and trying to get out and biting through the wire, and the thing is just starting to shoot its whatever out of it, trying to absorb the dogs, and then the dog splits open, and it's gross, but it's also terrifying. It's not just a shock factor, it's the idea that is scary.
Yeah, and that one shot, and I would love to know, because I don't think I've ever heard a commentary track on the subject, but the shot of those actual dogs ripping through an actual fence, that sold the whole sequence. Because that's bona fide, visceral dog panic. And if those shots weren't in there, it wouldn't sell the same. You need that moment of actual fear coming across somebody's face. Like, to bring up a completely different property, when Alan Rickman gets dropped at the end of Die Hard, the look on his face is genuine because they gave him a 3 count and unclicked him on the 2s. Yeah. And his face went into full panic mode, like they made a mistake. I'm falling off a building. And that's necessary for some of these visual effects because it's basically a blue screen shot. But the look on his face is not blue screen. It's totally legit. So
yes, it is. Yeah, dogs are better
and
actors than most people are in 2022.
How did
those,
they get them to do that?
I don't know. I don't know how you
Yep.
spook
And
the. I mean, they
Alan
obviously
Rickman
did.
was also afraid of guns too.
That's true. I
Right.
heard his handling of the weapon movie was a little off because he wasn't familiar with it. It was his first movie gig, so we can put that aside.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes those like real genuine reactions for movies are some of the best ones. Like I always remember reading back when Alfred Hitchcock was filming the original Psycho in black and white, and the scene where he's stocking up on her in the shower with the knife and she screams. He wasn't happy with the reaction that he was getting from her, so the director says, "Okay, break for lunch." When they all went to lunch, he told them to put ice water in the shower. So when they came back and they threw the actress in the shower and the guy comes up with the knife and she screams, she was screaming because they turned ice water on her without telling her.
Alfred Hitchcock was notorious for not being nice to his actors. It's surprising that Norman Bates on the list, because Norman Bates is a legitimately creepy character.
That was creepy.
Because
again, it was a
serial
psychological
killer,
thriller of like,
or not serial killer, but he was off. He wasn't a serial killer at that point. He was just a nut job. But
right,
he
but
was
again, like
legitimately.
A lot of those old movies, again, like there was nothing visually scary. It was all psychological. It was like it would get in your head and make you scare yourself. She said she had nightmares about that scene. Oh, I'm sure she did. I mean, I'm sure that was terrifying.
Of course, then they felt the need to come back with Psycho 3 some years down, or Psycho 2? Psycho 2.
Well, and
the one that came out
there
when
was
I was a kid.
Then there was that god-awful remake with Vince Vaughn.
Oh, Lord. Why? That's one of those why movies. We should do a show about that. Why did they remake this movie?
Yeah, why series.
Yeah, we would have to watch them, though.
Oh, that's true.
That's an excellent point.
Roman is really good at watching things he doesn't want to watch for content.
That's true. The end of
August. Going to watch She-Hulk.
Yeah, I got a whole trifecta at the end of the month that's going to punch me in the face and repeatedly. Yeah, but we can get to that later. No need to rush.
So it's funny, we're actually breaking this list down into psychological, like earworm, like creepiest characters, as opposed to scariest characters.
Right.
The scariest characters are the inanimate, alien, or supernatural ones so far, but the creepier ones are definitely more grounded. I mean, I could think of a half dozen movies. Rutger Hauer in The Hitchhiker was creepy as hell. It just, here's this guy, you just don't know what he's going to do. He's got massive crazy in his eyes. What are you going to do about this guy? He's a problem. One could say that
they have their foot in reality. Those are for me, and I actually, and this is going to sound a bit, I do include the demonic in that realm, in that area. The thing that
that's interesting. Yeah, like The Exorcist and even The Shining. The Shining definitely fits into that, where it's heavy grounded. It's not making any bones about it. You're on the earth, and this thing is intruding. This monster, you could say, is the hotel possessing Jack, possessing the hotel itself. You don't know what it is. It never makes itself present in the movie, but it's felt constantly. It's in the background. So, it's almost like Lord of the Rings in that sense, that the hotel in The Shining is a force that's just there from the get-go.
Which I think is kind of the general idea. If you've seen like the different variations of the movies and read the book, it's like that was the thing, is like the hotel was its own entity that basically possessed Jack Torrance.
Yeah, it's almost like he slipped into an identity that it had casted for him. Like, you've always been the caretaker. And he's like, wait, what are you talking about? This is my first time up at this hotel.
All right, so this next one, we've already talked a lot about it, but there's the xenomorph. And actually, Rosie had something to say here. She said that they stuck the baby alien thing under William Hurt's shirt before the scene. He didn't even see it beforehand. They also lied about how much fake blood was going to come out. So that was another scene in Alien where, if I remember correctly, they didn't tell the other actors what was going to happen. That was another one where I think like the shock and surprise on the other actors' faces was legitimate, because they really thought like, oh, like he's really choking on his food, or he's really whatever. And then all of a sudden this thing bursts out of his chest. Those were all genuine reactions because they didn't tell the rest of the crew what they had rigged up.
Now we've all seen this one, right? All of us.
Yeah, Jacob.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Because I was 9 when I saw this, and there are a couple of particularly scary scenes. Now the face hugger scene was not the face hugger scene, the chest buster scene, which is kind of gross. But the scary scenes, that's in the in like their aircon system, trekking around with the torch, getting ready to try to fry the thing. The scene down below with the engineer whose name I'm not remembering, but with all the chains jangling and you have the moisture everywhere, and it's just flat out scary stuff. And those are when you're just getting the flashes of the alien. And then even at the end, when Ripley's in the trap and that head swivels out, it's just good stuff. It's good quality horror of a creature you didn't really see that much.
Yeah, what were you saying, Jake?
Yeah, and then when the engine killed it jumps to the cat hissing, which gives you a scare jump.
Yeah. And I always remember too the scene where again, I'm forgetting the character's name, but when he's climbing around in the air ducts, whatever, and it sneaks up behind him and he turns around and this xenomorph just like shrieks at him and makes you jump out of your seat.
Go.
I was just say, like, there were very few moments, like, because moments like that, it's like those are like the cheap thrills where they make you jump, but it's like there were a couple of those in there. But really, I mean, this was a really brilliant, well-written sci-fi thriller that just creeped you out.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's the building of suspense. It's the building of suspense. When they're going around in the ship, all these dark corners, you're thinking, is it in that corner? Or it's they masterfully built up suspense in this movie.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing too, because that translates directly to the military actions in Aliens. When they're first entering the power station, right? The atmosphere generator. The sergeant is constantly telling the guys, check those corners, check those corners. So he's building tension that's left over from the previous movie where you're like, yeah, man, check those friggin' corners. That thing could be anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's also funny because we went in pretty ballsy. And then by the time everything starts coming apart, they're bored, up like they're under siege because they are.
Aliens, that was great.
Alien. But yeah, it was seeing go the gung ho team balls out. We got this, and then shit, board it up, and it was a big game changer when they actually had to fight the thing, as opposed to the idea of
game
the thing.
over, man.
Because Ripley knew what it was, they had no idea what it was.
Game over, man.
Just one of those things killed my entire goddamn crew.
Yeah, they just thought she was talking about some insects.
Yeah,
right.
Like
the bug.
I guess I'll Starship Trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what those guys were expecting, was some dumb ants or something.
Right, and it's a straightforward fight, which is not what they got. The alien is it's instinctual, but it's also, it learns. It's smarter than the bug it looks like.
Yeah. Hudson's line is it's very almost a dark tongue in cheek, because he's like, cut the power. What do you mean they cut the power? They're friggin' animals. What are you talking about?
Exactly. And there were scenes that were cut from the original, and I'm glad they did, because it would have taken away, well, certainly would have taken away from the second film, where you actually saw Dallas cocooned up in
Yeah.
the vents afterwards.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm glad they didn't do it, because it wasn't as well done at that point, because they hadn't really, I don't think, just hadn't mastered that. And it didn't need to be there, because it really didn't do anything to this version of the film.
Yeah, I don't, and they did the same thing in Aliens as well. There was a couple of scenes that they cut out that I think, like Hudson's ad lib about being a badass on board the drop ship, where he's talking about, yeah, we got this, we got that, we got all these gadgets and everything, and it's like it kind of diminishes because it's too tongue in cheek almost. It's too campy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, I agree, and it's not adding to the movie.
Also, the scene
Go ahead, Jake.
Also, the scene that they cut with I don't remember the guy's name. The guy that works for the company, where he's all cocooned up. You know the one I'm talking about.
Burke.
Yeah.
Burke was his name. Played by Reiser.
Paul
what the hell
Reiser.
is his name? Reiser. Thank you. But yeah, that was, again, it was unnecessary. It was actually better to think he got taken out in that one scene where he turns around after he let him out, and there's one of the big bugs waiting for him there. That was more gratifying.
Yeah. Actually,
there's
I don't
a
think
fine
they filmed
line.
that scene, did they?
Well, I'm sorry,
I don't
Jacob,
remember
what was that?
ever seeing that as a clip.
Yeah, I don't think it got
that.
past the script. I think it got cut from the script.
Yeah, it's on the deleted reel. You can actually, it's there.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that. Huh.
You could talk about Alien for a really long time.
Yeah, I know. Just one last thing, and I'll end on this side. Do you think this is one of those characters that has become victim to them over-explaining it with all the latest sequels? Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have seen Alien Covenant. Don't see it.
There were only 2 of these movies.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. It's just like how there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. But I made the mistake
would argue
of
that there's
going...
only 2.
I made the mistake of going to see Alien Covenant with some friends in theaters when it came out, because they were like, "Oh, Ridley Scott's back at the helm. We're gonna go see it. We're gonna whatever." And it over-explained the origin of what was creepy and mysterious to where now it's no longer creepy and mysterious, and it was just sort of like, oh, okay, like you've explained away everything that was interesting about it. And I'll never forget, in a movie theater, and it wasn't crowded because this movie wasn't doing well, but a friend of mine who already has a little bit of a deep, loud, booming voice anyways, the movie ends, and the credits roll, and he just screams, "We've been duped again! God damn it, Ridley Scott!" It's just like, here we are. We gave you our money again. Like, because that was after Prometheus, which there were aspects of Prometheus that I liked, but it was still kind of whatever. But Alien Covenant was just straight garbage.
I wish he did either of them, frankly. I wish he'd never made either of those films. Unnecessary filmmaking. I don't need an origin for everything.
As I say, I suppose we can move on from this one. Our next one is... see, this one is a little weird. Roman and I were kind of having some talk about this behind the scenes. This is one of the Cenobite characters from Hellraiser, and he's not even one of the main ones.
He looks like somebody from
I don't understand their list.
Yeah, the only thing I find scary about this character is that in the credits and everything, he's only referred to as the Chatterer, and oddly enough, being a guy that's sitting here putting my face on YouTube, I'm a pretty introverted guy. But usually when I'm at work, I have all these coworkers that want to make a lot of small talk and just chit chat about nothing all day long. So just the fact that this character is called the Chatterer is kind of terrifying to me, because I'm like, oh, it's like my coworkers that just want to make small talk for 8.5 hours every day.
Here he comes. I'm going to lose 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and it's funny, the Hellraiser characters, I mean, they were disturbing. I don't know if I would call any of them legitimately like scary. Now, I wouldn't want to hang out with him for the afternoon, but I don't really see this as scary. Hellraiser was kind of an interesting thing, but again, I don't find any of the Hellraiser, even what I guess one, God, an awful lot of these films at this point. But it never scared me. None of these characters scared me. I thought they were creepy and disturbing, but not scary.
Yeah.
Right. This is one I thought was weird to be on the list. I thought even if they had gone with Pinhead, who was like the lead character in Hellraiser, I never found him particularly scary, but he was on the list. Whatever.
Yeah, I would say that the forces playing the demonic forces in Jacob's Ladder were more terrifying.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
Ooh, Jacob's Ladder, totally.
Yeah, it's
totally a good recommend.
Yeah, another film where I don't hate Tim Robbins.
Yeah. Yeah, Jake.
What was that, Jacob?
Oh, I thought somebody said my name.
Oh, well, yes and no.
Oh, okay.
Jacob's
the movie Jacob's Ladder.
Not your ladder specifically.
Oh, yeah, Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I guess not a whole lot to say about this guy. Like you said, kind of creepy looking, which again, to kind of go back just real briefly to touch on what we were talking about in The Thing, I don't think I mentioned the more fascinating thing about some of those older movies like The Thing was the practical effects. And this was kind of that same thing too, sort of that body horror thing where they relied more on practical effects and not so much on special effects and CGI. So, I mean, there is something to be said about that with this and The Thing. Because now everything, they just do it all digitally, and it would probably be not quite as cool.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one. So this is another one I think Roman and I had a little bit of a disagreement on. Michael Myers. I don't think he's all that particularly creepy. Roman said he kind of was.
I like Michael Myers. Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Michael Myers.
Yeah.
In the original film, he was just called The Shape initially. It wasn't even. And what I liked about him is he didn't talk, unlike the coworkers. And you didn't really understand what his motivation was until later on, and then you got it, but he has there's not a thing that stops him. He will just cut his way through whatever. And in the first film, you didn't have that. It was before the indestructible Michael Myers phase. He was still taking quite a beating, but it was when Loomis and the sheriff come into the house after Michael escapes, and they find the dog in there, and Dr. Loomis is like, "Oh, he got hungry," and you just know you're dealing with something not standard in this being, and I found him 1 and 2 legitimately scary. Not 3 or subsequent films. So that's my take on Michael Myers.
I got no word on this one. I'm in the same. I don't think I've ever seen these two. Certainly not in their entirety.
Oh, really?
No, me neither.
Oh.
Yeah, 1978 is when the first one came out. I would give it a go. John Carpenter, he directed the first one. He didn't direct the second one. It's worth the view. I mean, if you don't like horror in general, then it's not. Then don't watch it because it's not your bag. But if you can tolerate it, it's definitely worth a view.
Right.
Well, yeah, because these
And
are
John
another ones
does-
where I don't feel like either one of these are ever particularly gory. Like this was before. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out around the same time, but this one, Halloween, I wouldn't necessarily call a slasher film. Like I don't necessarily feel like you saw a lot of blood or gore, but it was just sort of that like you said, he was called The Shape, and just sort of the stalker that just calmly, slowly followed after his victims, and yeah. At least the very first one is worth a watch. The second, I agree. I think 1 and 2 are good, but if nothing else, the first one is worth a watch.
Did he have
John
this
Carpenter
mask in the first one, or was it the ski mask? Which one was?
This is
yeah.
This I don't think this is from the first one, John. I think this is from.
Well, this particular
movie,
image. This particular image is probably from one of the remakes, but Michael Myers always had this mask.
Yes,
you're thinking of Friday the 13th, Jason. So actually,
he had
funny
a bag
enough,
actually in the
Hollow, and even before that,
13th too.
But funny enough, first and foremost, Jason isn't even on this list. So I think it's funny that Michael Myers is, but Jason wasn't. In the very first Friday the 13th movie, Jason wasn't even the killer. It was his mother. She was upset that like her son drowned at the camp and the whatever or something. Then in the second one, Jason was the killer, but he was wearing like a brown paper bag. I don't think he started wearing the hockey mask till like the third one. But Michael Myers always had this mask, which actually, fun fact, if you didn't know this, and you might be able to see it now that I pointed out, but the Michael Myers mask is a blank white mold of William Shatner's face.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
Yeah. And I think this one really is. I think the first one. I think it evolved as the movies continued to be made. That the first couple,
Yeah. All right, so let's see what our next topic is here. There we go, Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, this guy.
Another one that we agree is more of a psychological thriller than a horror movie.
Here, I'm going to get a drink. I talk too much. Someone else chat for a minute.
I think maybe Steven, I think you were the one that maybe touched on that. That again, it's like he's the one that seemed the most human, but also the most creepy.
Yeah, and
he's based on a real person, I think, isn't he?
I think it was like a combination of like it was a combination of, I want to say, I think like Ed Gein and a couple. It might have even been based off of one of the same real life stories that also inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I think this is another one that was based off of like loosely based off of a few different true life events.
Right. Yeah, I think the most terrifying thing about him was how he was very obviously intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, probably smarter than you think he is.
Right.
He was smarter than almost everybody else in the room. That was the scary thing.
It certainly seemed that way.
And he could appear to most people to be perfectly normal. And that's the scary thing. That's the thing I find terrifying about the serial killers in general. And I also find them fascinating as well. I would have loved to have gone into the FBI and been in that division to study these guys, because I find them fascinating. They're abhorrent, but there's the organized killers, the unorganized killers. Hannibal Lecter was what they would have classified as an organized serial killer. He was meticulous, and they didn't catch him for a very long time. And the Hannibal Lecter, the two movies that I thought he was good in, because they made 3 Lecter movies. There was Silence of the Lambs, the second one that I don't remember the name of, and the third one was Red Dragon, which was actually the first of the books enough, because that's the one where they actually catch. Or I'm sorry, Lecter's. Does he get caught in that one? I have to forget my brain's leaving.
I think there was one that still had Anthony Hopkins in it that was just called Hannibal, but then Red Dragon was like a prequel with a different actor, like a younger guy, right?
Yeah, it was done by the
You're
same
mixing
guys
no,
that did Miami Vice.
no. That
United
was
States.
Manhunter. That was Manhunter.
Oh,
It's the same movie. They did Red Dragon as well. These are two separate films, but they're the same, based on the same source material.
I
So
gotcha.
they did. So Manhunter was the one made by Michael Mann. Red Dragon was the one made by F. I don't know, but that actually had Anthony Hopkins in it as well. Not particularly well de-aged, but I like that story a lot because what Lecter does is shows his menace even from in the prison. He's in the chamber. He can't get out. But there's another serial killer out there that they call him the Fairy. Um, that they are hunting, and Lecter's supposed to be helping this, but he gets pissed at Will, the FBI guy, and he sets the other serial killer on the path to find Will and his family from his cell, and it's just so well done. The silence, or it was not, was it? I forget. There was a series. Hannibal, where Mills Malkinson played Hannibal Lecter, and it was on Showtime, and that series was really, really good. I found the end to be unsatisfying because it really deviated from script. But until that point, the show was really good. And what I think one of the other powerful elements about Lecter is that you, as an audience member, despite knowing what he is, still find him charming.
Yep. Yeah, and that goes right back to that thing I said about Jaws last time we were talking. Was just behind this character's eyes
Yep.
is a bona fide, classified, known on record, policed terror. He's an absolute monster. There's no getting around the fact. But you keep losing track of it because he knows how to seduce.
Yes.
He seduces
he's
her.
an apex killer that will eat you. That's another cannibalism is not a good topic. And the fact that he eats his victims, he doesn't just kill them, he consumes them.
Yeah. And in the sequel, in the sequel, when he's literally frying up that guy's brains while the guy is still alive at the dinner table. Whew. Feeding it to him. As a matter of fact,
feeding him his own brain. Yeah.
Was that also the one that had Gary Oldman in it as the guy that like been previously one of his victims and was like feeding people to pigs or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He had his face was all destroyed.
Yeah, because he had carved it off. Hannibal basically had him. I don't know if he was on drugs or just talked him into a state. And he's carving off his face and his skin and feeding it to his dogs.
Oh, that's fun. All right. Okay. It's still charming.
To me, that's definitely more terrifying than, Mike Myers or Jason or even, Freddy Krueger at that. Well, Freddy Krueger's another story. He's a supernatural force. We're getting to him soon, but
he's in here.
But Hannibal Lecter is, legitimately terrifying.
Yep. He's a top-notch guy.
Yeah, and again, this is different than Alien and The Thing, where we don't see the monster right off the bat, but it is different in the sense that we're seeing the monster face off. Like he's standing there in a blue jumpsuit in Silence of the Lamb, right? He's behind glass. He's captured.
And he looks like another person.
And yet he's not
some
below
scary
the
monster.
shadows.
He's a person.
Yeah.
Right. He's got humanity. Right.
But we don't see the monster part of him until a little bit later on. So it's still following the same rule, but it's breaking the rule because we're seeing he is the shadow of the monster. Somewhere inside of him is a deep, dark shadow. And that's what makes him really terrifying. Because that scene in the prison cell in the courthouse where he takes on those cops, it's like he just flips a switch. And that's it. You're done. You're done. He's planned this 8 moves to Sunday. You're not getting out of this alive. And that's what makes him really terrifying.
Yeah. All right. So, any final thoughts on Hannibal Lecter?
I don't want to go to one of his dinner parties.
But it would be so fabulous. He'd have all the right wines, the table
I
setting.
mean, he's got the Chianti and the
and the fava beans.
I know so many people that still get creeped out by his. My sister-in-law just will not allow anybody to say that in the house. They'll not allow anybody to imitate that sequence in the house. It's like, that's it. You're out.
So you do
get out of the house.
So you do it at every family gathering, of course.
That's right. Christmas morning.
So next up on the list, we have Pennywise. So this is another one. There's 2 different versions of it, and I'll quickly go back and forth here. We've got the newer one, played by Bill Skarsgård, and then, of course, we have the Tim Curry version, made for TV, so it's a little more censored, but... yeah, Pennywise, the Stephen King entity that it was. I have a lot of love for both versions because the made-for-TV one, first of all, had Tim Curry, which everyone loves. I think it was a little more accurate to the book. The 2 newer movies with Bill Skarsgård were less accurate to the book, but I gotta admit, I think were way more creepy, just in how he portrayed that character. But I don't know if you guys have seen either or both of these or have a dog in the fight on this one.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, interesting. I've seen enough of both to know exactly what you're talking about. The original, once again, it's boots on the ground, right? It's all practical. It's all in camera. They're not playing around. They're not making any tricks. There's a couple of costume gags that they do. And I think that's what really makes it terrifying, because when you get that jump scare, it's totally legit. But some of the mechanical effects in the new one, where he becomes a giant puppet, or he somehow slips from persona to persona and becomes gigantic sculptures that are monsters with larger teeth, and his teeth get all crazy. There was some very terrifying elements in that. It would be interesting to see like a supercut of both together, because there were some extremely effective sequences in the climax of both of the new It's.
Yeah,
I will say that I actually enjoyed part 1 of both of them better than the adult side, and they all grow up. With the exception of the original movie with the shower part, where it looks like freaking claymation. I think that's actually one of the worst effects ever. But as far as the overall story went and creep factor, I liked it when they were kids better. I just think everything just worked better as an overall story for me at that point. When they were adults, with the exception of some of the stuff, I just think a lot of it got lost. My give a shit dropped considerably, and I knew they're coming together as kids, because you know how we all get there. But okay, got it, Jacob. But that's just. But as far as the creature itself went, and this is where I'll be mildly unpopular, but I do like the Bill Skarsgård version of Pennywise better than Tim Curry, just because I thought Bill Skarsgård was more menacing, and Tim Curry's had a bit more. It was scary, but it was goofy scary.
Yeah,
and that's me.
Well, and it was the thing too is like it was in the 90s and it was made for TV. So I mean, like you can't do Stephen King on network television. I mean, there's so many things that have to be edited and censored and cut, and they even did the same thing with The Shining. Like there's a massive discrepancy between Stephen King is famously critical of the Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining movie with Jack Nicholson. But then in the 90s, they did a 3-part miniseries made for TV, which again, more accurate to the book, but then they had to scale everything back because it was on like ABC or whatever network it was on. So it's like, it's some give and take of, you get more detail, but you get more censorship.
Yeah. It's a pity they didn't have, say, HBO or Showtime or, one of those networks do it, because you can do any damn thing you want to on those networks. And that would have been better. But they didn't, and it's a moot point now. So, but I mean,
have y'all seen
go ahead, Jacob.
Black Rifle? Have y'all seen the Black Rifle Coffee skit where all these horror monsters start showing up? And of course,
No,
they
I
have
haven't.
plenty of guns and ammo.
Oh, man.
I don't think I've seen that. Actually, I want to see if I can pull that up real quick.
I say, wish we had that loaded. Bump. Come on, that was a little bit of gun humor. It wasn't great. It's not my best. Oh, that's cool. And I know you got to run here in just a few minutes, Jacob. But I did want to say thank you for hanging out with us this evening. I hope you had fun. It was fun for us, certainly.
Yeah, thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this quickly.
It's funny, if you going back in time, I'm a big advocate of retrospective analysis, and I had seen and grown up with Frankenstein, Dracula, Werewolf, all the original black and
the
whites,
classic Universals. Yeah,
right, and all their spin-offs afterwards. But when you go back as an adult, well, it's the Hammer horror period, where Frankenstein had 5 sons and 2 girlfriends, and it's like it became ridiculously cartoonish, like everything else.
Yep.
Where you're not supposed to take it seriously. Almost, it's just supposed to be good old popcorn fun, which is all fine. That's all well and good. But to go back and watch the originals that inspired the franchises, it's interesting as a retrospective because Boris Karloff's original appearance as Frankenstein, there's something about his weight class and the gauntness of his face.
Yeah.
And he was missing molars and was able to like suck his jawline in so that it made him look even gaunter than he there was one shot in that really, really sold the whole movie of Frankenstein for me, because it was like, this guy's barely alive. Oh, nice.
I'll have that going with the audio off, and we can keep chatting. But
well, that we don't get copyrighted straight for a commercial. Oh my God!
Right.
Stephen, which of the Universal classics was your favorite?
I would think that
that's great.
This is some house they got here. I think my favorite was probably Frankenstein.
Mine was Mummy. I loved the Mummy because it wasn't just bandages walking around. Go ahead, Jacob.
I like the Wolfman.
I loved Lon Chaney's Wolfman a lot.
Yeah.
Is it a lore thing that draws a line in the sand for that one? Because for me, it was all about the mad scientist creating an artificial person, and that's been a thread through most of my enjoyment of entertainment. Is super genius makes something incredible. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Dr. Dolittle. They've all got the same vein of super genius does something incredible. I mean, I enjoy that whole thread. So I'm curious, Jacob, what's the attraction to the werewolf?
I don't know. I thought it was kind of I thought he was creepy. I don't know. I remember as a kid being scared of him. For an older show, that's pretty good.
Yeah, right. I kind of feel like that's another one, almost sort of like you almost can't control it, because like on one hand you've got like the mad scientist thing, but like the werewolf thing, it's like if you get bit by the werewolf and it happens to you, it's like you're like in this thing that's like, okay, well, this is happening and I can't do anything about it. Which also, interestingly enough, on that topic, talking about like the older Universal movies, did you guys ever see the one with Jack Nicholson? Was it just called Wolf or Werewolf or what was it? Like
it was.
I feel like there was one Wolf,
1994.
Yeah. The one with Jack Nicholson, like there were some cheesy moments, but there were some pretty solid moments in that too. Like I thought that one was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Jack's an interesting case. Jack Nicholson. I think he's he might Jack Nicholson the properties he's involved in, and that's where some of the issues come in.
Yeah, I don't think he knows how to play anything other than Jack Nicholson, but
yeah, I just recently rewatched the original Batman movie with him as the Joker, and it's like,
see, I still have a lot of love for that one.
Yeah, but it's all nostalgic. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too.
I have a lot of problems with that. Hey, Jacob, do you have anything you wanna shout out before you gotta take off, buddy?
Not just my channel. If you go check out my channel. I'm planning on a live stream probably next week sometime. Just an art stream. So yeah, but that's about it. Yeah, but check me out on YouTube and Twitter.
Okay, so where is that? Just at Jacob Ironside on YouTube or the?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I'll make sure to. I'll throw your link in the description of the video too. I always try to put like Roman and anyone else that's a guest in here. Try to put it in there so there's an actual clickable link if anyone rewatches this too. So we'll throw that in there for you.
Very cool. Sorry you got to go.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for hanging out. It was good chatting with you.
Great having you, bud.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Anytime.
Talk to y'all later.
All right.
Later, Jacob.
All right. So I think our next one, funny enough, it's kind of one of those weird things. Like I said, the very first monster, the very first monster we talked about is also one that comes up again. The Exorcist. Okay. Like, so at first we're talking about the demon that possesses the little girl, and then actually Reagan McNeil, the little girl that gets possessed. I feel like the two are kind of one and the same. So the fact that they're on the list separately was like, what are we doing here?
But agreed.
Yeah.
Needless to say, she's still creepy as shit. That's another one of those movies that if I try to rewatch it now, I'm probably going to be up all night.
Yep. No, it's the voice, it's the skin, it's the delivery. They froze the room so you could see her breath. There was just so much done right. And when she's getting possessed, it wasn't like wham, bam, you're possessed. It was a process. It took a minute to get there. And when you got there, it was absolutely terrifying.
Oh, it was a slow burn for sure.
Yeah. That first half an hour, there's so much doubt in the audience, in the storyline, in all of the characters. You've got doctors suggesting that it's a mental illness. You've got the girl basically being tortured by scientific experiments.
Yeah.
And it's all feeding back in too, because the psychologist starts showing up and she's grabbing him by the nuts, and like you've got all this other stuff, and it's getting more supernatural by the second. You've got this haunted priest that is slowly entering into the story, approaching the plot line. It's it becomes like citywide, right? There's the church that's attacked, right?
Yes.
You've got the priest is getting haunted. You've got the other priest on the other side of the world being haunted. And then you've got this questionably possessed girl. So there's this context that this is happening outside of that room. It's not all in a bottle.
Right.
It's actually this worldwide presence that's happening.
Yeah.
which builds a lot of tension. It's great. I mean, most of the reactors that start watching this movie are just like, why are we in the Middle East? I thought this was about a possessed little girl. And they're like, I'm like, be patient, be patient. It gets there. It gets there.
Yeah.
Just keep watching,
Yeah.
keep watching.
And when it does.
Yeah. This is another movie that I think it's just like I maybe saw it a little bit too young or something, or I don't know, but in some regards you can look at it and see like, okay, there's a lot of like cheeseball Hollywood effects and everything, but again, it's that
I don't know. I think this movie stands up very well.
It's still that fear of the unknown. It's what you don't see. It's what you don't know. And then again, it's like if you are anyone of faith, which I know I myself am, Roman, it's like if you believe in the spiritual and the supernatural, like this is some creepy shit, because you're just like, okay, like just something just like take over your body and do this to you. Like
now, I'm going to throw this out there. They made an Exorcist 2. Avoid that. Pretend that never entered your life.
None of the sequels were ever good, because they even did years and
Exorcist
years later.
Exorcist 3, I think, is a greatly underrated sequel.
I agree with you on that
Scott's,
one.
And oh god, the guy who played Grimer Wormtongue.
Yeah, he plays.
Brad Dourif.
He plays a
Dourif,
serial killer.
He was Chucky.
Yeah.
Holy crap! There is some scary freaking scenes in this. Brad Dourif is terrifying.
Yeah.
And the way they go about it, because it's, of course, it's Damien Karras is in this, the young priest, and how he got into that movie, and from the end of The Exorcist. That whole story, I thought, was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And
then here
George
we got,
C. Scott,
even just the fact that it was a child made it that much more terrifying. Like imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids. Steven, I don't know if you do, but Roman, like, think of like watching something like this happen to one of your children. Like how much more terrifying that is. Like
it's something that's beyond your control. You don't know what's happening. And the voice changes, and that they did with her. We're again, these were all things that are legitimately just scary. It's visually, auditory, all that's hitting you from pretty much any sense that it can to scare the crap out of you. And beyond that, all in here. In here is the worst.
They're saying like when this movie premiered in theaters, I mean, people were walking out of the theaters. They were so disturbed by it, because this was still in the 70s, I think.
Yes, this was oh damn my brain.
Late 70s, 78, 79.
No, this was earlier.
It was before,
I think it was 74, 5 maybe.
It was before slasher flicks and things were like really a thing. So I mean, people weren't used to seeing such disturbing imagery on screen.
Yeah, and there was a legitimate concern in the actual press about satanic cults, about serial killers coming out of the hippie movement, all the satanic music that was coming out of the heavy metal scene. So there was a legitimate concern about the destruction of God, the destruction of church. And we even have a main character. Her mother is a liberal Hollywood actress with a decadent party happening at her house. She's doing a film about political rallies and social justice. So it's all feeding back into that. There must have been a right-wing centralist concern that went to go see this, that was actually saw all these earmarks and took it completely as legit. Of course her daughter would get possessed. She's right next to Satan, being a Hollywood actress. Like I could see these things actually feeding into the plot. But her performance, Linda Blair.
Yeah.
I'll bet you there's a few stories about her casting that were just like, how the hell did they wind up with this girl? What a crazy fluke.
Yeah.
And every time they changed her voice, where she's talking like the priest's mother, she's talking like the demon, she's talking like the.
Well, there was a different voice actors that came in when her voice changed and was deeper and was like cussing and saying all sorts of crazy vulgar things. They changed it for two different reasons. One, because they wanted just the change in vocal tone, and secondly, they didn't feel comfortable having a young girl saying some of the things that the demonic voice was saying.
Right.
Oddly
So they
enough,
had to have an older actress come in and dub over some of those later lines.
now in modern Hollywood, would have been fine with it.
They would have encouraged it. You know?
I'll tell you, one of the creepiest things in the creepiest things in Exorcist was the recording session. The actual recording session where he's talking to her directly, or talking to it directly. And then the analysis scene afterwards where you see it on the priest's face. He's like, wait, what are you saying? It's like, no, this is English. It's just playing backwards. It's like, how the hell? Because he was there. He recorded this person speaking backwards live. Right? Like, how do you do that? I can't speak backwards in real time. Like, that's crazy. So that really kind of creeped me out. That like gave it this kind of John Keel UFO mythology kind of creepiness, where it's like, what did I just record?
Performances, I think were also key to, just like the dogs in The Thing,
right?
The reactions from the other actors in the film legit put you in that place. You had Max von Sydow as the old priest, and Father Karras, and that actor is escaping me. But both of them were so good, and the mom, of course, was brilliant as well. They didn't waste a lot in this film. It feels long in the beginning, but you need that build up. Without that build up, none of the other stuff works.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's even like kind of talk about the scene with like the priest and the recording and the creepy whatever. That's part of why I think the more recent movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, creeped me out so much more, as it seemed so much more real, so much more believable. And I'll never forget, there's one specific scene where she's in the bedroom, they're trying to perform the exorcism, they're trying to get the demon out of the girl, and somehow they end up like outside and like in this barn outside. And she's standing there and the barn doors are flapping and the wind is going and everything. And the priest is like screaming. It's like, tell me your name. Like, tell me who you are. And she's screaming different languages and going back and forth and everything. And all of a sudden everything goes completely dark. And all you see is just like her eyes, like just white light piercing out. And it says, and I think she says something like, I am Legion, the one who possesses many, or something. Like that scene, so like, oh god, like it just gives me chills even thinking about it right now. I was like, this is creepy, like, because this is some real biblical shit right here. Like, this is creepy.
I don't know. Go ahead.
That's down to the director. I mean, you just described all the build up leading up to it, and then to have this completely legitimate, well executed visual effect of her eyes glowing and her saying that line. That's just good filmmaking, man. That's just good filmmaking. That's
it's
probably
like
what's missing from Hellraiser.
But then also someone like me who I've grown up going to church, like I've read through the Bible more than once in my lifetime. Like I know the Bible, I know the scripture and stuff. So the fact that like the visual, but then like the quoting of the biblical scripture and the everything all put together, I'm just like, this is some really creepy stuff going on right now. Like this is just like they did it so well that I was like, I never want to see this movie again.
Well, we've hit on a couple times, but what you need with this type of film, and quite honestly with most movies, is a patient director who lets the story tell itself without
slow burn,
beating you over the head with the story. But
it's funny. I forget who I was talking to about this, but there was a reactioner, and I commented. I'm like, in the 60s and 70s and even the early 80s, there was this thing called slow moves, right? It was a vibe, right? Slow moves on the dial, slow moves in the bedroom, slow moves on screen, even slow moves at work. You don't want to ruffle any feathers. You want to slowly kind of creep up on it and reveal that these are your intentions. Like, when you're out on a date, you don't just go, ham on the girl. You got to
'Cause then you'll go to jail.
slowly work. Right. You slowly work towards it. At the whole time, she knows where you're coming from. She knows what you want, but she wants to be seduced. She wants to be made love to. She wants to be taken out to dinner and shown a good movie and have a great time. And then we'll get to it. And the whole time it's simmering. It's all simmering in the background. And that's what you're supposed to do in these properties. You're supposed to let it stew, right? I mean, the best soups are the ones that brew the longest, right? It's like they've got the most diverse ingredients and they're just stewing away. And you could smell around the house that the stew is almost ready. It's like you could smell it in the house. And that's the kind of vibe that like Kubrick does in The Shining, between the music and the atmosphere. There's not a jump scare in that whole movie. There's not a single jump scare in that movie. And
the bathroom with the corpse, though. That was a jump scare for me.
That's not even a jump scare, though, because
I don't think that was really a jump.
Well, she creeped me out, damn it.
And I mean, like I said earlier, I do still have a lot of love for the Kubrick version as well. But what I've always heard and read, the big gripe that Stephen King had was that he felt like Jack Nicholson played the character from a standpoint of like him already being a little bit crazy, whereas the idea was he was supposed to be this like happy family man and whatever, and then he came and the hotel possessed him and made him do all these terrible things. But it's like Jack Nicholson already had a little bit of crazy eye going on when he came in. That and the ending, they completely, if you've ever read the book The Shining, they completely changed the ending, but that's neither here nor there. But other than that, I think it's a brilliantly made movie. I can, from an outside perspective, enjoy it and love it, and I think it's a great movie. I read the things of why Stephen King didn't like it, and I get it, and I understand it, and I've read the book and fine, but it's still a great movie. It's very well put together, and like you're saying, like there's no cheap thrills in it. It's all psychological. It's all getting in your brain. It's making you scare yourself.
Yeah. Even from that opening shot of the camera above the car traveling along the road.
Yeah.
Half a dozen reactors that I've seen watch that movie. They're just like, what is up with this music? We're just driving in a car. For Christ's sake, I'm already freaking out. What the hell? And it's true. You can almost feel the teeth of the mountain as they approach the hotel, eating into the car, eating into your psyche about prepare yourself. It's about to get crazy, It's so good. Even
did you see the follow-up?
The what?
Did you see the follow-up, Dr. Sleep?
No. Oh, yeah. It was okay. I'd be more curious. I'm more curious now that after seeing the movie, because let me back up a second. I used to like Ewan McGregor. Up until very recently. I thought the movie
what could
was
have happened
good
recently would have changed their opinion.
I think it was a particular point of view that was the problem.
On a particular character in a particular Star Wars series and a particular streaming service.
Hysterical.
The movie Dr. Sleep, I thought, was okay to a point, but as we all know, when books are adapted into movies, whatever, I am curious to read the book to see if the book is any better, because the idea of carrying on the story of Danny Torrance is a little bit fascinating, but at the same time, it's like, really, we're going to do this 40 years later? Now you're going to write a sequel? Like,
it doesn't always work. And
no.
Like with Maverick, and I know it wasn't based on a novelization, but with Maverick, 36 years later, it worked, and it worked very well. Dr.
Because
Sleep, I don't
people
think
were hungry for a movie that was pro-America and pro.
It was. No, well, it was though. It was the content as well. It wasn't just they made a sequel 36 years later, but doing a horror sequel is always a little hinky anyway. You
like how they're about to come out with like Scream 6.
Exactly. think of a horror sequel that was, as good as the original, and not a remake, but a sequel that to a horror film that was as good as the original. And I dare you to find one. And I'm not going to count Aliens because that's a whole different kind of conversation.
Different director, different style, different story.
Well, it's not even a horror movie. There is nothing about Aliens.
No, the Aliens was an action
that's straight
movie.
up action space movie, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it wasn't a sequel in the classic sense to Halloween 2 was a sequel. That is one of the rare ones where it is literally just a continuation of that first night. And I think in that instance it worked well. But that is an anomaly in the horror genre. The rest of them, there is nothing but a steady decline.
Right.
Tell me I'm wrong, please. Give me an example of where I'm off on this.
Yeah, and you could say the same thing about the original. You could say the same thing about the original Frankenstein too. I don't care what anybody says. The Bride of Frankenstein is a proper sequel. It actually occurs in the book as well, so it's not even off canon.
No, and that's funny.
In the original novel,
you're right. That is a singular story.
It's a single piece.
Of Frankenstein is a single piece to Antarctica.
Yeah, there probably should have been a third movie from the same time period where they do the chase, where Frankenstein the doctor is hunting down Frankenstein the monster, and there's that whole discussion that happens aboard the ship before he freezes to death or he dies. That would have been a perfect third part.
That's never been done well. The problem with Frankenstein now is I think that it has been done so many times.
It's been overly romanticized.
It can never work again. It's just, you keep going back to that thing and resurrecting it. Now your audience, the give a shit factor for that property is just gone. You could make the best damned Frankenstein ever now, and it wouldn't work. Because
it's the same way that I feel about like Dracula and the same kind of things. Like it's been done so many times, it's been over romanticized. It's like it's run the gamut, come up with something new, stop remaking the same old stories. Unless I'm not suggesting that someone remakes this, but if you go back and watch the old Young Frankenstein, that never gets old.
No, that one is from start to finish. Probably between that and The Thing, quite honestly, I go back and forth as my favorite movie ever.
What knockers!
I'll tell you, the premise of Frankenstein has actually been remade as a not Frankenstein movie. And the example that came to mind immediately is Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a Frankenstein movie. Here is an artificial biological life form that comes back to bite the inventor in the ass.
That is actually, God, you know what? I have never heard it put that way, and that is an excellent freaking perspective on that. I had never even thought about it like that, but you're 100% right.
Because the original Frankenstein is artificial intelligence. It's classified as science fiction artificial intelligence. It's a fake human, right? He's made from primordial soup in the original book. He's made using a series of like electrolysis inside of vats of primordial fluid, and his body manifests. He isn't put together made out of corpses. That's something that Hollywood added later on. He's actually manifested in the book. So it's more similar to the Blade Runner replicants than anything else. But it's basically speaking about mankind making something artificial. So it toys into the robot sequence as well. So Deus Ex Machina, that movie about the Google guy that makes his own female robot, and she's actually a monster.
A surprisingly good role for Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It's interesting. It is the same premise. It's mad scientists make something that's a little too much for them to handle, and it comes back and it bites them in the ass. That's kind of like Species as well, is the same thing. that 80s property, 80s 90s property, Species.
It was with
I remember that one.
the blonde lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they made like 3 different. I think there were 3 sequels.
Yeah,
2 or
you just
3
got to
sequels
stick with
that
just
as
the
well,
first
which
one again.
There had not. There
You
should
could-
not have been. Yeah, the first one was good because it was just weird enough, and it had the sci-fi element of the alien stuff going on.
Right.
Not as well received, obviously, as the other properties.
Yeah,
but
it felt
the
a little
concept-
knockoff. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was supposed to be Predator, Alien, and some monster movie, basically, like all kind of wrapped up into one.
all in a hot blonde chick.
Right.
Hmm.
So to round off that box set, you could add the Terminator. So Frankenstein, the Terminator, and Blade Runner are 3 similar monster movies, in my opinion. Because the Terminator is a man-made invention that comes back to bite you in the ass.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I think we're getting there now with all the smart technology we have now.
Oof, it's getting creepy.
All right.
Well, now that we've gotten
we wandered there.
Back to the supernatural. Freddy Krueger.
I don't like Freddy Krueger.
Don't like him.
I think he is goofy. I think even in the first movie, he was too goofy for me, and that's just my opinion. The concept is kind of, the dream killer with the knives and all that.
Right.
I thought the delivery of it. This is just for me. It came off as goofy, and in a lot of horror stuff,
I get that.
It's a real close line.
It was very campy,
and he did have a lot of comedy thing, and for me, it was just kind of over the top. I just don't prefer Freddy Krueger. That's me.
I hear everything you're saying. Like, it was very campy. The premise was interesting in the fact that how he was like haunting young people in their dreams and killing them, but there was a lot of campy one-liners and comedy, I guess. But part of me, I guess, as I became fascinated with the franchise and like watched through the gamut of all the movies, good and bad, I found it interesting in that it was like, Freddy Krueger isn't just gonna kill you; he's gonna make fun of you, and then he's gonna kill you.
And then he's gonna
kind of funny. It's kind of funny.
It's interesting that there's a tonal parallel to it.
A little bit,
this
yeah.
is
I understand.
An older serial killer that wound up in the dreamscape. I mean, and it really plays to the audience. It almost breaks the fourth wall. I mean, that's the part that Roman doesn't like, and it's the part that you kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
It's literally like it almost knows what it is, which is very meta, considering that he's a dream hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you're in a dream, but you still can't get out of it somehow. So the idea that he's able to break that fourth wall to the audience, to the characters, to the dream world, it almost plays in. It's like, yeah, I'm going to screw around and I'm going to make tongue-in-cheek, stupid James Bond style jokes. That's all going to be okay because I'm in your dreams. This is not supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's having fun with itself. It's great. It certainly sold. I mean, he is a legendary Hollywood
popular
horror character.
I think I was working in the movie theater, and I had to endure like 3 of those movies while I was working in the theater.
I think another just like random story that I thought was kind of funny about the actor Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger was that I read an interview once where he was talking about being in full makeup, full day of filming and everything, and he went back to his trailer and like laid down to just kind of, I'm just gonna relax, I'm gonna take a quick nap, whatever. And he woke up still in the full Freddy Krueger makeup, and there was a mirror in his trailer. So he sat up half awake, like coming out of his nap, and like, oh, like I just woke up from sleeping and taking a nap, and like sat up and in the mirror saw Freddy Krueger and about shit his pants. That one was kind of funny, but he is an iconic both actor and character, which funny enough, I mean, it's like Robert Englund hasn't really done much else that was very notable beyond this, but he's so
he was
inseparable.
in that V miniseries.
He was so inseparable from this character. And fun fact, if you don't know this, the very first Nightmare on Elm Street movie was the film debut of young Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Where he got eaten by the bed.
Yeah.
Little foreshadowing
you could
there.
tell a few. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, you're going to have beds in your life. There's going to be a bed thing in your near future as well. So.
And Johnny Depp's charecir is going to die.
So I woke up,
I have,
and then the bed was covered with fecal matter. And
it's but there's a lot of campy, cheesy moments in there. But Freddy Krueger, I think, has I've got a lot of love for the character because he's kind of he's not that creepy, but they're entertaining to watch, I think. Yeah.
He's got real.
It played to the demographic. I mean, you imagine a whole gang of girls going out of high school, senior year. They're going to see these movies, college people like going on a first date. It must have been fun as hell because, it's like a roller coaster ride. You get on the thing. It looks scary. You get on the thing. It is scary. You go through the whole ride. You're screaming and you're yelling, but you're having a great time. It's not making any bones about it. This is all fiction. We're all going to walk out of here alive, right? Yeah. I mean, it plays to what Hollywood wanted horror movies to be at that time, and that was a boatload of fun, like an amusement park ride.
Yeah,
and he was great. He's like the Crypt Keeper, man. He's absolutely hysterical.
I like the Crypt Keeper. I thought he had class.
And I almost wanted to pull up. So I wanted like the picture that I pulled up of Freddy Krueger. I was real back and forth, but we ran the gamut of Freddy Krueger looking like what you see here. And then they kind of ended it. They said, okay, that's the end. That's the end of the franchise. We're done with it. And then in the early 90s, they put out a movie called Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And I got to admit, I thought that one actually had some pretty creepy aspects to it because it was one of those things, again, where it kind of became self-aware, kind of became sort of meta, where it was like Wes Craven was going to make a new Freddy movie, but now like the actors and the people involved are realizing that like Freddy is really real and he's down in the depths and whatever. And it became this whole, like, again, breaking the fourth wall, which I appreciated. I thought was interesting. But the Freddy in that version of that movie was so much more creepy, so much more serious. And so like, I thought it was well done. It was the last one they did until they did the reboot with the guy that played Rorschach in The Watchmen. That one doesn't count because that one was pretty bad. But the last one with Robert Englund, I thought was well done.
Yeah, we were going through a period in time where we were trying to make these things more legitimate. A lot of these horror movies tried to ramp up the reality of it, kind of like the way they did with the reinterpretations of the Godzilla franchise, where they actually created a government organization, right, that has been hunting these things for a long time, and they know about them, and to try and create this kind of, this vibe of reality, so to speak.
I think horror movies,
so it makes sense that they would do that.
Horror movies like today are a lot tougher as a sell. They generally tend to have a supernatural element now and that's almost like the go-to. I mean, the Conjuring franchise has several films in it. We actually, and I didn't want to watch it, but my young son, Jacob of the Empire, made me watch it the other night, was Annabelle Comes Home.
Oh.
And It wasn't bad. I didn't hate it. Certain characters annoyed the bejesus out of me, but overall, it was pretty well done. I think that actually I enjoy that entire franchise, which is one of the few things I can say about almost any horror franchise. And I'm not going to say they're brilliant films. I think the first one was really well done because it is based on that actual couple. They did exist, and they had their things happen to them, which is also one of the scarier elements too. Is that that these things, some of these things did happen in real life, at least versions of these things. Where characters like Freddy now, they're a joke. You can't put them on screen without them being humorous. The Michael Myers franchise right now, the next film, Halloween Ends, is coming out.
Oh God. That's
again,
ridiculous.
Exactly. Your reaction to that is most people's reaction to that at this point. Is no one really gives a shit. It's not scary anymore. It's lost the ability to do that. So now you have to have some kind of other element for it to be scary.
And I don't feel like, I mean, maybe just me personally, I don't feel like Freddy was ever scary. I think Freddy was more campy than scary from the beginning. And I could be I could be wrong on that. I could be in the minority on that. But I felt like Freddy Krueger was always meant to be more campy than scary. Like, yes, he looks all burned and he, kind of looks like a pepperoni pizza that stayed in the oven too long. But his one-liners and his jokes and everything, like there was nothing ever that was really creepy about him until maybe, like I said, that last one, the Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That one where like they tried to make it a little more serious, a little more creepy, but I never found him scary, but I found him entertaining.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he was a host on a survival game. It's like that's basically what he was.
And your torch has been put out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we might as well round it out with because I know I'm going to have a lot of arguments on this last one. Leatherface apparently was number one on this list, which I do not find to be that menacing or that scary or that terrifying. Do I think that there were aspects of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that were disturbing? Yes. Do I think that the character of Leatherface was all that scary? Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the old man drinking blood was far more terrifying.
Yeah, it was way more creepy.
Yep.
It was
because you can almost believe it.
It's the disturbing aspect with
the disturbing aspects were far more creepy, but just the guy wearing the skin and
I mean, he's like a more animated version of Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
And this actually was inspired by Ed Gein though.
Yes.
I mean, so was Buffalo Bill to a degree.
Right. Wearing other people's skin.
That part of it, it's you don't want to think about things like this.
No.
It's that part of your brain that just finds them so objectionable in a real society that you just want to, they're off-putting.
Right.
If that's the right word.
Yeah.
Scary is not the same thing. If I was running from this guy when he's chasing me with the chainsaw, yes, that's scary. But seeing him on screen is disturbing, and it gives me the giblets.
I think the first movie, Texas Chainsaw, the camera was doing most of the heavy lifting. The camera never felt professional. It always felt documentary.
Yeah.
And because of that, it always felt like you were really there. These kids were just hitchhikers, wound up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's it. We're in for this terrible, terrible ride. Even the sets felt legitimately made, like you walked into somebody's real house.
Yeah.
Because it was probably a whole house that they had access to. So it felt real. So the camera was doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting in the first movie. That's what made it creepy, because even that guy, the old man's, his face was a cheap prosthetic. and you could tell it was fake, right? But because everything else was legit, it was a real dinner table, real lighting, everything felt totally real. And because of that, it just got creepier and creepier and creepier because your brain is absorbing all these images, and it's like this is really happening. I can't get over how this looks so real. I mean, they probably had real dead birds hanging, right? I mean, all the taxidermy was all real taxidermy, and that goes a long way. You know, that was what made the lunch scene, the sandwich scene in Psycho. That's what made that scene creepy, was all the taxidermy in the background. Because who was the mouse and who was the bird, right? Who was the cat and who was the bird in that scene? And it kind of flips back and forth because you think she's the dangerous character because she just stole all this money. But no. She's a poor little fly in some terrible spider's web. And you're just starting to get the vibe of it as he gets upset about his mom. You know, all that tension, you know, builds up, and the set was lending itself to that, where he's captured birds before and he's cut their guts out and hung them up on the wall. So yeah, it's there's something to all of that stuff that I can imagine a modern version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You could feel how professional the camera is.
Yep. No, they've redone it.
Takes away.
It's been redone multiple times, but none as disturbing as the original.
And disturbing, I think, is still the key word of that. Not scary, disturbing. I mean, just the image we're looking at right now, there's a part of your brain that's saying that's that doesn't
disturbing.
Belong.
Yeah, like it's not particularly scary, but at the same time, like if you actually saw that person coming at you, like it would be pretty,
It's creepy. Right. It is. There's a big creep factor.
It's creepy. Yeah.
And the photograph lends to that because the only thing that is out of place is the chainsaw and the Leatherface. Everything else, he's got a real tie, he's got a real jacket, that's real scrub in the background, that's a real house. And it's like nothing is fake.
Yeah.
So your brain immediately is able to translate it into reality, and that's what makes it creepy. That's why most of the creepypasta stuff is so creepy. It's just a hair out of kilter. Yeah. And because of that, you're like, wow, I can imagine this happening next door, right?
In the real world.
Because of that. Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, even this might be kind of dipping into what could be a totally different future live stream, but talking about the director Christopher Nolan and his unpopular Batman franchise that he did. I appreciated a lot of what he did with the Batman character and the Christopher Nolan version movies and everything, but what he did was he rooted them in reality. None of the characters were supernatural. None of the villains were supernatural. Nothing. So people were upset. Oh, they're not comic book accurate. You're not staying true to the stories. But on the other hand, I'm saying, well, yes, I understand and I hear all of those complaints, but I still appreciated a lot of what he did with that franchise exactly for that. So that was sort of my unpopular opinion there. And keeping things rooted in reality.
The original canon of, the original Rogues Gallery, there's not a lot of supernatural stuff in that. I mean,
the
Joker is not supernatural, right? He's disturbed, right? And he's superhuman because of his mental ability, his mental situation. The Penguin is just a ruthless gangster who's into the diamond trade, right? He's a club owner. The Riddler is just a megalomaniac who thinks he knows better than everybody in the room. And Catwoman is just a very, very gifted burglar, right? We're not talking about a lot of supernatural stuff here. And even Ra's al Ghul was really talking about the whole Masonic order or like a secret society kind of thing going on. And, one notch above Bruce Wayne, so to speak. But even he didn't become epically supernatural until the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah, with the regeneration pool.
So, I mean, all that to say, I know that the Christopher Nolan version of Batman was met with a lot of criticism for a lot of different reasons. I loved all those movies for a lot of reasons, but I understand the criticisms as well.
I like the Chris Nolan films a lot.
That could be, because he's another one that he's a big believer in practical effects first, CGI second. That could, like, this could be like a whole other live stream all in and of itself. But he is one of the, I believe Christopher Nolan is one of the last true filmmakers left right now who he doesn't want to just crank a movie out just to be like, okay, I'll put something out there to appease the masses. Like, he wants to create art. He wants to create films. And I know I sound pretentious saying, oh, he's a filmmaker, pinky out and everything, but no, like, he's legitimately, like, he's not just making movies, he's making films.
Yeah, there's a particular thing about Interstellar that I will I'll never get over this. I'm in the theater, I'm watching the sequences of them going into orbit, right? They're taking the Ranger up, right? The little triangular diamond shaped, cool looking spacecraft looking thing. They're pushing atmosphere. They're moving up to the space station, and the sun glances across the surface of the spacecraft. And I'm just like, wow, that's it. CGI is so convincing. I can't tell if that's fake or not. And then I get the DVD and I watch the behind the scenes footage, and I am suddenly relaxed because it wasn't CGI. He had taken the full set prop, like the set piece of the spacecraft, and put it on a gimbal. And it was smaller than the actual spacecraft, but it was certainly larger than a CGI model or even a special effects model. So all of that spider webbing across the surface as the sun glances across the black surfaces and the glass, I was like, okay, that wasn't CGI. Thank God, because that was just too convincing. It blew my mind in the theater.
So even like, okay, so like when Christopher Nolan made his Batman trilogy, in the scenes where they're in, you know, the quote unquote Bat Cave, and there's water and stuff is like coming up out of the floor and everything, people think, oh, like they were on a soundstage and that was the set. Yes, it was the soundstage and it was a set, but they specifically found a soundstage where they could fill it with water and have 360 degrees worth of filming potential. So there was no, okay, here's the film crew and then here's the shot. It's like, no, like if we want to shoot here, we can shoot here. If we want to completely turn the cameras around 180 degrees and shoot the other direction, we can shoot the other direction. They literally built the Bat Cave 360 degrees all the way around, full like range of, you can film in any direction you want in the movie on a soundstage. And that's just like, okay, this guy really actually like gives a shit about the movies that he's putting out, because he's willing to put in the time and the money and the effort to be like, no, I don't want like cameras here and set here. Like if I want to point the camera in any direction, I want that option.
Yeah, you don't have to think about your setups. You know, you should be able to just turn around and go over his shoulder, over his shoulder, over his shoulder, over his shoulder. I don't have to worry about the budget constraint because that part of the set isn't built. I don't need to restage it so I lose my continuity of the previous shot. No, you just point the camera and go because it's a real place.
Christopher Nolan, he's probably made some of my most top favorite movies in the last 2 decades, like Memento, The Prestige, the Batman trilogy, Inception, Interstellar, everything. Like I could go on and on and on. People are like, what are your favorite movies? I could just say Christopher Nolan. Like,
yeah, we have a handful of these guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, there aren't many left. Yeah, I was gonna say there just aren't many filmmakers left. You got guys who like to throw movies at you. And
they're just cranking them out for a profit.
There aren't many left. The gentleman, and the name is going to escape me, and that sucks, who did The Northman, who also did The Lighthouse, who is doing Nosferatu next with William Dafoe. He's a filmmaker. That's what he does. And he thinks about those tiny elements and doesn't leave it to someone else. He wants to bring you the story in a very visual sense that you can just take it all in and go, wow, that was spectacular.
Are you talking about the director of The Northman or the writer?
Yeah, the director.
Director Robert Eggers.
Yes, yeah, he's apparently he's a bit of an odd bird, and that's fine. Most of your good folks are a little bit odd.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure
that's great.
Christopher Nolan is a bit odd.
I haven't heard about them remake or redoing Nosferatu.
Yeah,
Did either of you guys see Shadow of the Vampire?
I did.
I have not.
I love that. That was freaking awesome. Also, genuinely creepy.
A whole cast of characters, a whole cast of like pretty top-notch actors. The film is basically the filming of the original Nosferatu.
Yep.
And
interesting.
William Dafoe plays the actor who plays Nosferatu.
Yeah, I forget the name of the.
Okay, I have heard of this.
Shrek something.
Max Shrek
was the original actor. Which is funny. That's a stage name because Max Schreck means basically total monster, right? If you translate the German over, because Schreck is a German word or a Eastern European word for monster or troll. So when you mentioned that he's doing Nosferatu, this is going to be like coming home for him, right? Second time. He was great.
He should be brilliant. Well, I think the director Robert Eggers likes him though because of their work together on The Lighthouse, because that was him and the kid who was in the Twilight movies.
Patterson.
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. Yeah. I'm good at getting this, ultimately there. I'm not so good at remembering the.
It's okay. You're 111 years old.
Soon to be
111.
12.
I love that. 111. Hysterical.
Less than half of you is half of what you deserve.
So good.
Well, gentlemen, I think we're rounding out almost up on 2 hours now. We've kind of made through our list, and past Leatherface as being number one, I thought we could have talked further about characters that we thought were better, but I feel like we've already kind of touched on things we thought were better before we even got to the list. So I think this is as good a place as any to kind of close it out. We'll kind of go around the room. We'll start with Roman. You want to say where we can find you, follow you, anything? And like I said, I'm going to do my best to, after the fact, put these things in the description of the videos. There's also clickable links, but also so we have it on camera. Roman, where can we find you? Where can we follow you?
So on this Wednesday, I'll be on with PJ Maybe, doing a deep dive into the movie Predator. That's going to be at noon PST on UK time. And then we're back on Thursday at 5 p.m. for our normal John and Roman solves the world's problems. That's a lie.
We could be saving the world. I don't know.
Man, it would be a lot shorter. It'd be a lot shorter of a title. And this week we're going to be looking at 5 favorite movies from each of the last 5 decades. And I was thinking about what inspired me. I think it's because I'm actually getting another just skosh bit older into my current decade, and not long after that.
You are old.
I am ancient. And then on Friday, I don't have anything. But then again on Saturday, because Father Miller's not on this week, then Saturday I'm back on with PG maybe at noon for Let's Talk Geeky, which is classic and TV movie. Pretty much just free flow, and we end up talking for I talk for about 2.5 hours. They talk for about 4 hours. And then back here again Monday. So Roman of the Empire. Thanks for having me. This was a weird thing because some of these things we all agreed were good, and many of these things agreed were not, because this wasn't our list. This was just a list because it's always a fun place to start. But I don't know how they found some of these things and just thought, yeah, this was a good idea. It's like, well, because people voted on it, and I just don't know how you got that many votes on a character like the Chatterer. How have the Chatterer made the list at all? and others did not. Is
I
beyond
mean,
me, but that's just me.
I will say visually, just on a visual aspect, I think that character was more creepy, but really like not Pinhead. Pinhead was like the main Cenobite. Whatever. It's neither here nor there. Okay, fine. And Steven, again, thank you so much for joining us again. Do you have anything you want to close out on, or where we can find you, where we can follow you?
I've been doing a regular thing. This guy Blaine's Escape Corner. He has an open mic on Friday nights, so you might find me there chatting about escapism. He's basically an anime and entertainment channel, but we go all over the place on Friday night. As a matter of fact, the host insists that we go all over the place because it's supposed to be big time Friday night escapism. You want to talk about booze? You want to talk about fast foods? Let's make a list about your favorite plants on the side of the road. It really doesn't matter. It's just a bunch of guys just kicking some stuff around with the chat. So that's all good. So that's my Friday night. But other than that, I'm here on YouTube at the same name. I don't do much on my YouTube channel. I got some interesting playlists and stuff like that, but just kicking it in some chats, watching some videos, doing some stuff on Twitter. But
and you're
thanks for having
with
me,
us
guys.
Next Monday.
All right.
Yeah,
next Monday
thank
for
you.
our Memento Monday, which is
actually
my
awesome.
birthday,
Yeah, we got to figure that out. Are we going to do your birthday stream on Thursday on your channel, or are we going to make it the Monday thing? I mean,
we're not doing a
Monday's
birthday stream,
actual birthday,
because 111 is far too old an age to have a birthday stream.
You got to do the Bilbo quote.
No, it's fine. I'll be good and liquored up over the weekend. Monday, I'll be probably maybe a bit subdued because of the weekend, but we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and sign off tonight. So again, this is John, the creative blue collar guy, signing off. We got Roman, we got Steven, and as always, good chatting with you guys. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time.
Have a good one.
Be excellent to each other.
Oh, it didn't work.
You pulled a me.
I pulled a you.